the Allies together made almost 600,000 airplanes. And we just buried them. We just absolutely buried the Germans. And even with the Japanese now against us in World War II, they were only able to make 76,000. Their industry was not crushed. They were not forbidden to make anything, but they didn't have a big industrial base to begin with. So even with Germany and Japan together, we still outproduced them. Keep in mind, we didn't get in the war until 1941, the end of 1941. By 1945, we produced 300,000. It was unprecedented, I keep saying, but I'm telling you, it's just crazy when you think about the numbers of things that we were able to produce. It gets worse. The Germans have another problem. You see, it's like, oops, my ship is broken. You see that? It's like, uh-oh, big crack here. If you're a German builder of anything, and you're a technical whiz at, say, modern welding, and you worked in a shipyard, there was no job for you in Germany. So you left. You went where they're building ships. Great Britain, France, United States, wherever. So a lot of them just left. It's sort of like the brain drain, where if you think of technical Silicon Valley types, if there's no Silicon Valley, where do the people go who know how to code and do things? They're going to go wherever they can. So as a result, their expertise fell off. They didn't know how to make things. And so when World War II happened, this cruiser ends up having, it just cracked and didn't work. So, to finish, how could you prevent World War II if you went back in time and could advise those people? Clemenceau, as I mentioned earlier, had the right idea. Had Germany been broken up, like Austria-Hungary, into several different countries, and many countries like Turkey, then when Hitler came to power in Bavaria, that's all he would have had. How would he have convinced Prussia and Württemberg and Bavaria and other nations, because they would have been separate nations, to join with him? It would have taken a lot longer, and it's very possible that he would have only gotten a part of Germany to ever accept the Nazis. But instead, there was enough of a large country there that when he took over as chancellor, he was able to take all of that, and in just a few years, in 1934, early in 34, he came to power, and by 1939, he had enough airplanes and tanks and warships to start World War II. And as long as the United States was not in it, he had a chance to pull it off. He conquered Poland, he conquered France, he conquered the Low Countries, he conquered Norway, he conquered Denmark. Italy was on his side in this war, and Britain was all alone, just standing all alone. And he then invaded the Soviet Union, which a lot of people think was the biggest mistake he ever made, because he was going up against not somebody as powerful as the United States, but that was a big mistake, because as long as he's just fighting Great Britain, Britain sooner or later went bankrupt. It literally went bankrupt. And the United States played a big role in that. We're a bad guy, at least before the war. And here's what happened. Great Britain says, we want to have you do what you did in World War I. We want you to build engines, we want you to build weapons, we want you to do everything we can to help us win this. We all got to stop Hitler. And Roosevelt and the bankers said, no cash, no weapons. And they're like, we're bankrupt. Said, well, Chiquita bananas and copper mines and all these other things around the world are British. Why don't you just sign those over? We ended up getting a lot of Britain's final wealth. The empire was done at that point, and the United States ended up with a tremendous number of British assets, and we gave them terrible things like 50 old destroyers from World War I. Here you go. Great deal. I mean, think about it, right? What is it? Trump has the art of the deal, right? Roosevelt had a great one. It was like, here, take this old crap, and give us your mines and your rubber plantations and everything. So, the United States made out really well. But again, here's the interesting part about World War II, that despite everything I just said and about crushing them with the weight of numbers, Hitler saved us, because when Japan attacked the United States at Pearl Harbor, Germany wasn't part of that. They could have said, not us, we have nothing to do with this. okay? And how would we convince the American people to support a war against another country, Germany, when they hadn't attacked us? There was a huge anti-war feeling in this country. America first. Charles Lindbergh and big-name people were against Roosevelt getting us involved in the war. After the fact, we're looking at Nazi death camps, we're looking at all the bad things that happened, but at the time, people either didn't know about it or refused to believe it. And Hitler saved everything by declaring war on us because his ally, Japan, had attacked us, and he thought, if I do this, then Japan will attack Russia on the other side, on the Pacific side, and it will help us win against the Soviet Union. Japan was like, no, that's not happening. Not happening. So Germany got the worst of that and made a huge blunder. And up to that point, Hitler had been rather shrewd in his judgment because he had conquered so much of Europe. Britain was bankrupt. They were done, even if they ended up on the winning side, which is all you can say, really. They ended up on the winning side. Soviet Union ended up growing, got all of Eastern Europe, and started spreading its influence around the globe. And just like World War I, the United States comes off on top. But we also ended up with an industrial base that was wedded to the military. They had to work together. The workers don't care what they're making, right? So if they're making warships and warplanes and everything, that's fine. And that's what we still have today. And you wonder, $1 billion airplane? $1 million drone? Well, yeah. You can make cars, you can make drones, you can do any of that. But the United States just skyrocketed because of all this that happened. Our workers were 24/7, 3 shifts a day in order to produce all that. Well, they made a lot of money. They could buy homes, they could buy cars. They were doing pretty good. If you were in the United States, which could not be touched by Japan or Germany, by bombers or any other invasion, we didn't have to worry about getting devastated. Europe was destroyed. Half of the Soviet Union was destroyed. Japan, totally destroyed. So in 1945, who's the strongest, most advanced country on the planet? USA.
USA.
Okay? So that's what came out of it. But there are a lot of different things that could have happened. I'm just showing you the historical connection between World War I, how it ended, and how the peace was determined and inflicted on the losers, and how that influenced how World War II was going to go. But I had a friend I like to design games, and games are all about what if. What if it had happened differently? And you explore what ifs like that through a game where you can say, what if the Soviet Union and Germany had actually stayed neutral? And only Great Britain was there. What if Japan had not attacked the United States, but rather attacked Britain and France, who had colonies in the Pacific? All those things are interesting what if and alternatives, and I'll be very happy to take your questions or comments. Yes, ma'am.
One of your earlier slides said that Germany had to give up their secrets and their patents.
Yes.
Did that include mustard gas?
Yeah, we got all the formula for every one of their gases and everything they did. Germany had, I know this sounds crazy, the man who created the poison gas that killed thousands won a Nobel Prize. No, he didn't win the Nobel Prize for doing poison gas. What did he win the Nobel Prize for? Germany was the most advanced country in fertilizers. One of the reasons Europe was able to have so many people is because they were able to produce so much food. And so, we've got, 9 billion people on the planet today. They're still using the German fertilizers, chemical fertilizers, to grow food. And so that's what he won the Nobel Prize for in chemistry.
Can you just speak a bit about how the power vacuum in Germany was filled after the war, the Weimar Republic and all that?
The Weimar Republic came into existence because the Kaiser was deposed. The Allies really were angry with him because they blamed him for starting the war. Not completely true, but somebody had to take the blame. He's it. So he's gone. What's going to replace him? Germany had never not had a king, a Kaiser. So the socialists, who were the largest single party in Germany, had to form a government, and it was located in Weimar, which is why it's called the Weimar Republic, and they called it a republic because they have no more royalty running it. So they were first forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles. They had to do that. And then they started cheating as soon as they could, okay? But Germany was so devastated, and a lot of people don't realize, the war did not end for Germany in 1918. When they marched home to Germany, it was still starving, still under a blockade. The British didn't give up on the blockade. Even though the war was over, they continued to prevent supplies and food and medicine and everything from getting to Germany. One of the greatest Americans who tried to change that was Herbert Hoover, who sent a huge relief force and American ships to basically bulldoze their way through the blockade to reach not only Belgium and a lot of the Central European countries that were now supposed to be allies, but were starving. In Austria, literally, children were starving to death. So you had a civil war in Germany as the communists, socialists, and monarchists and others were fighting for control. And this went into the early 20s. And the Weimar Republic is trying to survive all this turmoil. This is very similar, by the way. You think of Iraq, you think of Syria. That's the stuff that's going on in Germany in the early 1920s. So you can see, you wonder, how did they get the Nazis in there? It's like, if you went through that crap and somebody said, you know, I got a solution, and we're going to make Germany great again. Okay? Well, guess what? There are a lot of people that are going to buy into that, especially if they've been suffering. If you buried your children because of the British blockade, I think you're not going to be too friendly to the Brits anymore, and I think you're not going to want to go along with any kind of European, unity. It's like Germany was out for revenge, and a lot of Germans were willing to listen to Adolf Hitler, because we always wonder, why would anybody listen to this lunatic? Well, what's the alternative? Yes, any other? Yes, sir.
Was the atomic bomb was started in Germany or
The nuclear bomb?
the nuclear bomb?
Okay, so Albert Einstein is a German who immigrated to the United States when the Germans started really doing bad things to the Jews. He's a Jewish man who basically got out of Germany in time before he got arrested or shot. Okay, this is even before the death camps. So Germany was working on nuclear research, just like all the major countries of the world. No one knew what was going to happen. They didn't know what was going to lead to, but they knew that nuclear research was just a natural progression of scientific research. When he got to the United States, he wrote a letter to President Roosevelt, and he said, you really need to get started on this seriously because Germany is already researching this stuff. And so President Roosevelt, again, with just this one guy's recommendation, they put more money into that. I mean, think of this, trillions of dollars of 1940 dollars into a program they had no idea what was going to happen. All they knew is if Germany got it, or Japan, if they got it first, those nuclear mushroom clouds would be blowing up over our cities, Los Angeles, New York, or wherever. And Roosevelt had no choice but to try and stop that by getting our program going first. Germany suffered a major disaster where they had an accident, radioactive accident that killed a lot of their scientists. Japan never had the industrial base to be able to make these. Are really expensive to make. And Great Britain said, you know what, we can't afford this, we're already bankrupt. And they gave everything they could to us, all the information they had, just so we could create these bombs. Okay? And that's how it got into place. Wesley Graves, who was the American officer that was in charge of the program, was faced by these scientists who were like prima donnas screaming at each other and everything else. It's like, no, we gotta do it this way. No, we gotta do it this way. And because we were wealthy enough, he said, you know what? Your team go make it that way, and your team go make it that way. I don't know which way it's gonna work, and neither do you. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna fund both. That's how we were able to do things, because we had the money. But Germany was definitely working